this.
In what world would I need to say that?
Oh. Okay, do you remember what happened last time?
I'm gonna need the reminder.
Okay, so let me see where it started because I also forget how when it started. They saw that the door was open to the place where they left Xi Jingxuan, and um, they were like, how the fuck did this happen? Like, he must have like opened the door to let someone in because there's no way. And um, then in their panic, Hua Chung left. He was like, I gotta do something, but I'll talk to you when I get back. And then it was just Ming Yi and Shilian. And Shilian was like panicking, and Ming Yi was panicking, and so they called Shi Wudu, Xi Qingchuan's brother, even though Xi Qingchuan really didn't want them to call the brother because he's about to do like his heavenly calamity.
Hmm.
And Shi Wudu comes down with Ling Wen and Pei Ming on like a fucking giant golden carriage and is like all insane about it and is like, "Where's my freaking brother?" And then what did it say when they find him? Oh yeah, inside the place where they hid Shi Jinxuan, all of a sudden there was written in large crimson script that seemed to drip like blood, wretched beginning, wretched end, which is what the Reverend of Empty Words keeps saying to Xi Jinxuan. And um, how did they find him again? He just like showed up and started screaming. I don't know. Where the hell does it say? I literally forget.
Don't
They
know.
found him again. I forget how they found him again.
I
Well, they
also
found him
forgot.
again and he was like screaming. And um, they were like, it's the Reverend of Empty Words, and Shiwuru's face dropped, and Pei Ming and Ling Wen's face dropped. And then they gave Shi Chuan like a little medicine, and then Shiwuru's like, I'll take care of this, I got him, and then just leaves. And Shi Chuan woke up and was just screeching and screaming, and the last paragraph that happened was Shi Chuan was dazed for a good while before he gradually came around. When he fully regained consciousness, the first thing he saw was Shi Wudu, and then something happened that no one could have expected. Shi Chuan shoved Shi Wudu away, clutching his own head, and screamed. And that's the last thing that happened, the image that I'll send.
I think I do remember the image. Yes.
Okay. Chapter 57. Teasing words befuddle me and also my dear.
My dear.
The esteemed watermaster almost tumbled backwards with the force of that shove. He spent a few moments in that sorry state, completely dumbfounded, before he called out to his brother once more. Qingxuan, it's Gaga. I know it's you, Shi Qingxuan roared. So he knew it was Shi Wudu. He wasn't delusional and unable to recognize people. Why such a reaction then? Shi Wudu reached for him again. Everything's all right now. Shi Qingxuan slapped his hand away. All right, my ass. How can anything be all right? Just stop talking. Ah, I can't take this. The moment he said that, it wasn't just Shi Wudu's face that changed color, but Ling Wen's as well. and as he returned from giving out directives to his subordinates, Pei Ming's. Qing Xuan, stop making a scene. Talking to your brother like that is no different from slapping him in the face and pouring poison on his heart. When Shi Qingxuan heard Pei Ming speak, he usually couldn't resist biting back at least a little, but now he ignored him completely, as he clutched his head and muttered like he was possessed. I don't want to hear anything. You stop talking too. Let me cool down for a minute. Just go. Just get out of here. Shi Wudu couldn't stand it any longer. What nonsense are you spouting? He barked. Lord Windmaster, Ling Wen also chided. If there's something the matter, just tell us. Then we'll know what we can do to address it. Do you not understand the words coming out of my mouth? Shi Qingxuan roared and raged. Get out of here! Can you all please just get the hell out of here? And then it has him screaming twice. He was growling like he was unhinged, and he screamed and screamed until he sputtered out a mouthful of blood. Lord Windmaster! Shilian exclaimed. Shi Wudu seized his wrist to check his pulse. After feeling it, his expression turned more terrifying than a ghost's. Like he was going to cough up blood on the spot too. Lord Watermaster, what's wrong with Lord Windmaster? Shilian asked. He reached out to check for the pulse as well, but Shi Wudu forcibly slapped his hand away, like he couldn't allow Shilian to discover the details of Shi Qingxuan's condition. Shi Wudu glared at him with raw fury, but he soon redirected his attention to his younger brother. You're ill. You're deranged from fright. I'm taking you back for treatment. You'll heal up just fine. Shi Qingxuan stared at him squarely. I am not ill, he stated, putting emphasis on each word. You should know best whether I'm ill. Don't write me off as crazy. I'm very aware. I've never been so aware in my life. Shi Wudu grabbed hold of him, then began to drag him to the carriage, yelling as he went. You don't understand anything. Don't speak nonsense. Ming Shang, Shi Qingxuan wailed. Ming Shang, save me. Your Highness, save me. He reached out to them with both arms, grabbing on to one with each hand. Shilian and Ming Yi both held on to hands he extended, but Shi Wudu ruthlessly yanked him away again. Let's go. Everything's all right. Gaga's here. Shi Qingxuan was still screaming, and Pei Ming and Ling Wen went over to help Shi Wudu hold him down. Your brother doesn't want to go back with you, Ming Yi shouted. The Reverend of Empty Words still hasn't been dealt with yet, Shilian exclaimed as well. Lord Watermaster, what do you plan on? Shi Wudu cut him off sharply. What Reverend of Empty Words? I have no idea what you're talking about. He's ill. His mind is addled. That is all. But Lord Windmaster, Shilian tried once more. Shi Wudu cut him off again. He's my brother. Don't you think I have his best interests at heart? This is a family matter. There's no need to trouble outsiders. Also, would the two lords kindly not spread word of this around? Just mind your own business. When he raised his hand in front of Shi Qingxuan and swept it down, sending the Windmaster into unconsciousness. Then Shi Wudu forced him into the golden carriage. While his words were unpleasant, they gave Shilian pause. He wasn't wrong. Shi Wudu was Shi Qingxuan's brother by blood, so how could he intend to harm him? And with two other heavenly officials accompanying them, sending Shi Qingxuan back with their party truly was the safest option. When family showed up, how could outsiders continue to interfere? The Windmaster fan lay broken in two on the ground, ignored by everyone. Ling Wen finally collected it as she addressed Shilian and Ming Yi. Your Highness, Lord Earthmaster, please don't be offended. Lord Watermaster is only losing his head because he's so worried. This affair is personal, and personal scandals shouldn't be publicized, so pray, my lords, keep this to yourselves. He will surely make amends once this is settled. After the perfunctory niceties were said, Ling Wen also hastily boarded the carriage. The golden carriage rose in the air, rumbling, and then flew off. As Shilian watched the stream of propitious clouds gradually disappear in the night sky, it finally hit him. The Watermaster really did take the Windmaster away, just like that. And after they'd run around all night, they were really left behind, just like that. Ming Yi was about to leave when Shilian snapped out of it. Lord Earthmaster, he called to him. Ming Yi paused in his step. He turned his head and gave him a long, meaningful look. Relax. I won't say anything about Hua Cheng. Shilian sighed a breath of relief. Thank you. Are you going to go check up on Lord Windmaster? Ming Yi nodded once, then turned back to continue on his way. Let me drink. Bro, they just did this arc in the audio drama, and Shi Ching Chuan screaming in that was crazy. Like the voice actor put his pussy into it.
Put his pussy into
Yeah.
it.
Although Shilian was also very worried about the Windmaster, the medical heavenly officials in the upper court would be much more helpful than him. Besides, Shi Wudu would most certainly not want any outsiders to witness his brother's madness. Given that, it wasn't the right time to pay a visit. Hua Cheng's sudden departure was a bigger concern, so after weighing his options, Shilian decided to go find Hua Cheng first. With his mind made up, Shilian left the terrace of cascading wine and swiftly began his overnight journey. Unable to use the teleportation array, and without a golden carriage drawn by burnished metal horses, Shilian could only depend on his legs to carry him through the mountain paths. What kind of situation did Sanlang run off to handle? Shilian wondered as he sprinted. His expression and tone of voice made it seem like it was something serious. Hopefully I'll be able to give him a hand at this time. An incense time hadn't even passed before he noticed that the roads ahead of him were thick with evil chi, the haze of it blurring visibility. Shilian unconsciously slowed his pace. No way. What is it now? He stood on the side of the road to quietly observe and play it by ear. A long moment later, he heard a bizarre work song from the thick of the evil chi ahead. Hey, ho, hey. Hey, hey, ho. An enormous, hazy silhouette appeared at the end of the road ahead. It was large, with some parts floating about, but Shilian couldn't tell what it was. He had never seen anything with such a shape, but it was certainly quite massive, and he reflexively took a step back in alarm. Royer was coiled on his left arm and ready to attack, and as he rested his right hand on Fengshin's hilt. Soon, the giant thing emerged from the mist and showed his true form. Shilian's eyes widened. Bless you. Heaven's official blessings. It
No
was a
way.
glamorous and exceedingly extravagant step-litter. Exquisite, feather-light satin veils cascaded from its golden canopy. Anyone enthroned within would be obscured by the expanse of enchanting crimson drapes, and leave much to the imagination of anyone marveling from the outside. 4 golden skeletons, with abnormally large bone structures, served as porters, carrying the step-litter along as they hollered their work song. Small ghost fires twirled and floated next to each skeleton's skull. These little ghost fires were likely used for illumination, as they burned brighter whenever they passed through a darker section of the road. The sight was so strange, and had such an air of evil, but Shilian couldn't help but gape, wondering if he'd run into some ghost lady out to meet a lover on a date. He hurriedly backed onto the side of the road to give way. Unexpectedly, the 4 golden skeletons carrying the extravagant step-litter stopped in front of him and turned their skulls in his direction. One of the golden skeletons clattered its jawbone up and down, and out came a sound from who knew where. It addressed him with a shuddering voice. Lord Chengzi sent us to receive the crown prince of Shenle. Is that you, my lord? Lord Chengzi. That had to be Hua Cheng. Shilian removed his hand from the hilt of his sword. That's me. Clatter, clatter. The skeletons seemed to rejoice, and they lowered the step-litter. Please board. Let's go. Should these 4 gold skeletons wish to carry him to Hua Cheng? Could these 4? Would that be too much trouble? Shilian bold-facedly ventured. Nothing of the sort. It's no trouble at all. This is our job. Your Highness, please board. Lord Chengzi awaits your arrival. Thus, Shilian cautiously stepped onto the platform, lifted the veil, and seated himself within. Thanks for your help. The golden skeletons were ecstatic, clattering away something incomprehensible. They picked up the step-litter and started bumping along the mountain paths. Within the step-litter was a soft chair, lined with brocade, exceedingly comfortable. Shilian sat with poise at the center of the chair, though he thought it was a bit big for just one person. The way the skeletons were carrying the vehicle made it look like a very bumpy and wobbly ride, but when he actually sat down, it was quite steady. They moved extremely fast, swifter even than the flying on a sword. And other than the bizarre work song those golden skeletons enjoyed chanting, it was practically silent, much quieter than a rumbling golden carriage with burnished metal horses, and even more mysterious in appearance. When Shilian was still a crown prince, he would sometimes ride a step-litter when he went out. He was much younger back then, and sat on the lap of either his father or mother. The step-litter was carried by specially chosen palace attendants, who escorted them with fanfare. It made for a mighty and impressive sight. When he got older, he didn't enjoy it as much anymore. Still, this was his first time being transported by creatures such as these, so he couldn't help but find it curious. Drink.
Drink, drink.
After traveling for a while, he sensed a band of green ghost fires ahead. Their wispy lights shimmered through the veils, and hushed whispers could be heard in the night air. "Who goes there? Shouldn't you be leaving something behind crossin' through this burial ground?" It seemed they'd run into some wild ghosts blocking the road. They were crooks doing crooks dirty, ghosts devouring ghosts. But the very idea of them challenging Hua Cheng made the skeletons laugh and clatter their jaws. "What do you want us to leave behind?" Shilian was mulling over whether he should go out to help deal with this, when he heard those tiny voices shriek. "Oh gosh! Oh Lord! Forgive us! Our damned eyes be blind! We didn't realize this was the step-litter of our venerable Hua Changzi. Get back to the burials! Get back! Milords, please pass, as you will. Milords are magnanimous. Please pass, as you will." "Too late! Too late! Lord Chengzi gave clear instructions that the High Highness seated in this step-litter shall not be offended," the golden skeleton said. "So what shall we do with you now that His Highness has been delayed?" Hellish wails howled all around. Shilian couldn't just sit and watch anymore. He had to intervene. Don't worry about it. Since we're in a rush, let's just go. Let's just let this go." "As His Highness orders, I suppose we shall let them go," the skeleton said. "Y'all got off easy." "However, remember not to block the roads and not to harm travelers," Shilian added. The wild ghosts were jubilant. "No, no, we swear we never." "Thank you, my lord." "We're off," the skeletons hollered. As they passed through the blockade, Shilian faintly heard the curious gossip of female ghosts. "Hey, who do you think the highness who's sitting in there is? I've never heard of Hua Chengzi's golden step-litter carrying around anyone but him. If it were a lady, it would be easy to guess, but it's a man. How very strange." "What's so strange about it?" Shilian wondered. Then he heard the female ghost say, "Yeah, and here I was so sure the golden step-litter was carrying his honored wife." As he rode in the step-litter, Shilian began to feel drowsy from the long days he spent running around. With one hand propping up his cheek, he dozed off. A long while later, he felt the step-litter stop again. "What is it?" he mumbled groggily. He thought they had run into another gang of road-blocking wild ghosts, but as soon as he spoke, he felt the step-litter dip. Another person had gotten on. The man lifted the veil and called out softly, "Guga?" Shilian rubbed his eyes and squinted, gazing out at the voice. "Sun Long?" The one who'd come was, naturally, Hua Cheng. Greeted by the sight of Shilian's bleary, half-awakened state, he was a little stunned. Shilian sat up and cleared his throat, feeling a bit embarrassed. "I accidentally fell asleep." Hua Cheng smiled and climbed up to sit as well. "Guga is exhausted. I hope Guga won't mind if I squeeze in." Shilian nodded and tried to shuffle to the right, wanting to give Hua Cheng more space. However, Hua Cheng wound his arm around his right shoulder, pulling him back. "No need. There's plenty of room." Truthfully, there wasn't.
Rude.
This step-litter was too craftily made. Too big for one person, too cramped for two. It would not be a perfect fit for a pair unless one employed the method from Shilian's younger years. That is, one sitting on the lap of the other. "You left just in time earlier. 3 heavenly officials from the upper court descended at once." Hua Cheng humped. "Was it the 3 tumors? I'd expected that." "Was that why you ran off?" Shilian teased. Hua Cheng gave a joking reply as well. "No, I went to hail a ride." "So how is it, Guga? Isn't my infernal ghost carriage much more fun than those upper court officials' golden carriages?" "Yes, very much so," Shilian laughed. But when he was reminded of Windmaster's odd state, he couldn't laugh anymore and became solemn. "By the way, Sun Long, what was it you wanted to tell me before?" Their eyes met inadvertently. Hua Cheng still hadn't let go of Shilian's right shoulder, as if he was holding him in an embrace. Looking from the outside, two overlapping silhouettes could be seen through the step-litter's veils, curled together in one inseparable whole. Inside those red curtains, Hua Cheng smiled. Gaga, want to get married? Shilian was struck dumb. Huh?
Hello.
Such an intense gaze, such words. They were in such close quarters with nowhere to run. Colors exploded in Shilian's vision, and his mind went completely blank. His entire body was frozen, stiffer than a corpse. Seeing his reaction, Hua Cheng withdrew his arm and let out a snicker. It's a joke. Did I shock Gaga? Shilian only snapped out of it with concerted effort. You're too much. How can you joke about something like that? It wasn't just shock. He was so rattled by that question that his heart had almost stopped. And though he did not quite understand why, he also felt a trace of hurt. My bad, Hua Cheng laughed. He stretched out his long legs and crossed them, settling them in front of the step-ladder and wiggling his feet. The silver chains on his boots clinked against each other, jingling crisply. Playful, indeed. Before tonight, Shilian would have thought his boyish heart was fun, adorable even. But now, for some reason, the jingling noise disrupted his calm, and an unexplained frustration filled his mind. He was dismayed for a good while, and couldn't help but say it again in his mind. How can you joke about something like that? However, when he thought about it, there wasn't anything wrong with Hua Cheng saying what he'd said. It was because it didn't mean anything that he could joke about it. Hua Cheng noticed his odd expression and promptly sat up straight. Your Highness, please don't take it to heart. I was in the wrong just now. I won't joke about it ever again. Seeing him apologize so solemnly, Shilian felt guilty. Am I stupid? It was only a joke, nothing serious. Besides, San Lang only said want to get married. He didn't specify to whom. So where did my mind wander off to? Get a hold of yourself. This instant, right now. He mentally slapped himself a few times and steadied his spirit before he smiled. No, no, no. How are you in the wrong? Don't misunderstand. I was just thinking about Lord Windmaster, so I looked a bit serious. Oh, Hua Cheng said. Since the water tyrant descended, that affair should be taken care of, right? They cooperated very well in changing the subject. Shilian gave serious thought to the idea, then slightly shook his head. San Lang, do you really think this is all over? Somehow, I think it's only beginning. Let me take a sip. Wasn't that crazy?
He's fucking insane.
Shilian's like, how dare you not ask me seriously?
Why would you joke about
Why would you joke
something
about
like
that? I want to get married for
that?
real. Shi Jingxuan had always admired and respected his older brother, but he'd reacted so intensely when he escaped danger and awoke to the sight of his brother's face. A frightening thought sprouted in Shilian's mind. Could Shi Wudu have been the one who cajoled Shi Jingxuan into opening the doors? Although Shi Wudu would have been in the company of Ling Wen and General Pei at the time, it wasn't difficult for powerful heavenly officials to create clones and send them off on errands. He was just about to tell Hua Cheng of his suspicions when Hua Cheng stated, No, this matter is done and over with. His tone was so firm that Shilian was stunned in spite of himself. San Lang? Hua Cheng stared at him intently. Gaga, do you trust me? Shilian met his eyes and was equally firm in his response. I do. Then believe me, Hua Cheng continued slowly. Stay far away from the Wind Master, the Water Master, the Earth Master, Ling Wen, and Pei Ming. The farther away, the better. After that exchange, thoughts weighed down Shilian's mind for the rest of the journey. He tried prodding for more information, but every response Hua Cheng gave him seemed to indicate he had already said all he was willing to say on the subject, and so Shilian didn't push. Upon their return to Puchi Shrine, dawn had not yet broken. As he pushed the door open, Shilian could see that the dishes had been cleaned and put away. Lang Ying, Gaze, and Qirong were all inside, tucked under a blanket and soundly asleep. It seemed that there really was someone who had attended to things here while he was gone, and they had already silently left. This time, when Shilian returned, there was a large stack of prayers waiting for him. Pushy Shrine had never received so many prayers before, but he didn't think it had anything to do with the wealthy merchant spreading the good word. Yes, the wealthy merchant who lived in town finally stopped by to fulfill his vow. However, even if he had stopped by, he either didn't notice or purposely ignored the very obvious sign Chilian had placed out front. He also didn't donate as much money as he promised he would. The most important purpose of his visit was to gift a silk pennant, and he enthusiastically presented it to Chilian in front of all the villagers. Chilian rolled it open unsuspectingly, then promptly folded it closed. The giant words on the pennant were still burned into his mind. Return babes through miraculous hands. There's like a note on this. Footnote 4. Return babes through miraculous hands is a play on the idiom returning spring through miraculous hands, which is a compliment for doctors who are so skilled they can bring the dying back to life. Okay. Julien had been struck speechless. Remembering sending the wealthy merchant off, he exhaled a long sigh. He worried every day, wondering when the shack would finally collapse. He really didn't know when he'd be able to have it repaired. Hua Cheng was leaning against the shrine's door and seemed to have guessed what he was sighing over. "I've been wanting to ask," Hua Cheng said. "If Gega doesn't feel secure living here, why not move somewhere else?" Shilian shook his head. "That's easy for you to say, Sandang. Where would I move?" Hua Cheng smiled. "Why not move in with me?" Shilian knew that those words couldn't be as nonchalant as they sounded, but that joke the other night, had somehow traumatized him, and he no longer dared to respond to anything Hua Cheng said using that joking tone. He would only acknowledge him with a brief smile and a tilt of his head. As for the prayers he had received, they were all quite mundane requests. The old ox broke his leg and couldn't haul the plow, or the wife in the house got pregnant and couldn't help in the fields. But they were prayers, nevertheless, and he had to treat all worshippers equally. So after taking a few days to rest, Shilian responded to them by heading into the village to help plow and plant the fields. Since Hua Cheng was staying with him, naturally, he tagged along to play. Shilian hadn't wanted him to take up such hard manual labor, but he refused to be dissuaded. And so the two changed into coarse clothing, rolled up their sleeves and trouser legs, and entered the waters of the rice paddy fields. Bustling farmers scattered the expanse of lush green rice paddies, and among them 2 silhouettes were particularly conspicuous. Hua Cheng's impressive air could hardly be hidden away so easily, even when he was dressed in Shilian's gritty clothing. Rather, the ragged outfit only seemed to accentuate his face and figure. The two of them were fair-skinned, with beautiful arms and long straight legs, and they were brilliantly eye-catching amidst the field of muddy farmers. The village girls were used to being surrounded by boors, and the sight of such a pair made their hearts race and cheeks redden. They kept sneaking glances as they planted seedlings, and soon their grafts veered so far off course that they became the targets of the day's teasing. Hua Cheng's blanched skin was a color devoid of blood, while Shilian's luminously pale skin had rosy undertones. Due to Shilian's natural physique, the more he sweated, the more his skin glowed like white jade. With the blazing sun overhead as they worked, he flushed as white as powder in no time at all. The dry heat was intolerable, and he wiped at the beads of sweat rolling down his collarbone. A sudden thought struck him. Ghosts were creatures of the shadows, and disliked the sun, so Hua Cheng must be even more irritated than he was. Julien turned his head to look. Sure enough, he saw Hua Cheng straighten up languidly as well, his eyes squinting as he used one hand to block out the sun. Though partially hidden under the shadow of his hand, his eyes were gazing in Julien's direction. Julien walked over and pressed his bamboo hat on Hua Cheng's head. "Here." Hua Cheng seemed somewhat surprised by the action, but his eyes soon squinted into a smile. "Okay." Although Hua Cheng had said he was only going to work the fields for the fun of it, when he actually got down to business, he was much faster than Julien. He was quick and proper and incredibly skilled. An hour later, Julien finished transplanting his paddies, but he was already sore and achy. He straightened up and knocked his fist against his lower back for some relief, and Hua Cheng instantly came over to help him out. Julien took a look at Hua Cheng's section, and he was shocked to see that he frequently finished a large patch of field He'd quietly finished a large patch of field all by himself in only an hour. Each green rice stalk stood neat and orderly in the watery paddies, and it was a sight most pleasing to the eye. San Lang, you really do learn fast, Shilian marveled earnestly. You don't need to help me. Go sit and rest, and drink some water or something. As Shilian wished, Hua Cheng went to the field ridges to retrieve water. The village chief had been watching from the sidelines for some time, and he gave a thumbs up. Dao Zhang, which house does that lad belong to? He's so diligent, so amazing. Just one of him is as good as 10 men. If any girl catches his eye, it'll be her good fortune. Shilian snorted a laugh, but it wasn't long before a few others crept in to inquire as well. Hey, where does Dao Zhang, where does the lad staying in your shrine hail from? Is he married yet? He hasn't got a wife at home, right? Surely not, he's so young. Shilian didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and answered vaguely, I guess not. He's young, so it's not time to consider anything yet. Well, that's not right, the villagers countered. It's precisely because he's young that the matter has to be settled quickly. Dao Zhang, you gotta talk to him. Men gotta get settled early before they can mature. Gotta start a family before anything else. That's right. Young people got those raging hormones and all. They can't endure too many lonely nights. All these villagers were from
Okay.
households with daughters and were clearly there to dig for information. Just as Shilian courteously turned them away, Hua Cheng strolled over with a bamboo water bottle dangling from his hand. I'm married. There's a wife at home. When the villagers heard this, they were greatly disappointed, but still unrelenting. Whose daughter is it? Wouldn't you tell us, little fella? You're not lying to us, are you? She must be
Little
virtuous and
fella.
beautiful. Hua Cheng raised his brows. That's right. Virtuous and beautiful. A real, noble, gracious, special someone who I've liked ever since I was young. I had a crush for many years and pursued it non-stop until I managed to win my special someone over. He spoke with such a straight face, without a hint of falsehood, that the villagers felt they had no chance. They could only disperse, their disappointment apparent. Shilian was lost in thought at his words, when Hua Cheng handed him a cloth and water bottle. Water? Shilian took the cloth and wiped his muddy hands before drinking a few swallows from the water bottle. Then he passed the bottle back over. Without realizing it, he had bunched the cloth in his hands into a messy ball, and he patted himself with it here and there. He tried to hold in the question for a while, but in the end he still couldn't help but ask, Is it true?
Oh my god.
Hua Cheng took the bamboo bottle back and drank from it himself, his Adam's apple rolling up and down once with the motion of his throat.
Okay. Oh.
Is what true? He asked, lowering his head. Shilian wiped a bit of sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. He wondered if the sun was a little too bright today, because his forehead and his cheeks were burning up. He smiled and tried his best to sound casual. That there's a wife at home, virtuous and beautiful, a real noble, gracious, special someone. You had a crush since you were young and pursued it non-stop until you won that person over. Oh, Hua Cheng said. That's a lie.
Oh.
Shilian let out a sigh of relief, though he didn't notice. This time, his smile was genuine, and he copied Hua Cheng's tone from before. You liar. Hua Cheng grinned and added, But it wasn't all a lie. I just haven't won that person over yet.
Whoa.
Shilian was dumbstruck by this, but Hua Cheng had already turned around to continue laboring in the fields. Shilian stood where he was in a daze, before before eventually bending down and getting back to work. For some reason, he felt a little unhappy. Soon after, he discovered that a row of his graphs was off course, and he quickly pulled his mind back to earth. As he worked the fields, he tried connecting with the Windmaster through the private communication array. Although Hua Cheng had warned him about getting close to the Windmaster and his coterie, Julien couldn't help it. He'd made multiple attempts over the past few days, but not once did he succeed. He recited the password over and over, and was met with nothing but silence on the other side. Thus, he changed tactics, and reached out to Ling Wen instead. Ling Wen, how is Lord Windmaster doing? Ling Wen connected promptly, and her voice sounded next to Julien's ear. Lord Windmaster? I think he's a little better. Julian's instincts told him she wasn't telling the truth, but he didn't push. However, it did help him make up his mind to go up fairly soon to investigate. By the way, Lord Watermaster sent a gift to you, and it has already arrived, Ling Wen added. Please remember to take a look, Your Highness. Shilian was perplexed. A gift? That isn't necessary. I haven't done anything deserving of a reward. There's no need to be modest, Ling Wen said. When Lord Windmaster gets impulsive, he drags anyone nearby along with him. You went through so much trouble for so long while in his company. In any manner of speaking, there is no shame in accepting the gift. Lord Watermaster said it was nothing but a small show of gratitude, so just take it. Shilian didn't think it appropriate, and kept it tucked in the back of his mind. Once work was done and they cleaned up, Huacheng went over to the village chief's house to help prepare his plow, and Shilian returned to Puchi Shrine. After moving the 3 good-for-nothings, as Huacheng had called them, behind the shrine, Shilian searched all over his small abode. Where's the gift? He wondered. Thinking it might have fallen in the cracks behind the donation box, he rolled up his sleeves to lift and move the box aside. It unexpectedly refused when he tried. It was excessively heavy, like it had grown roots into the ground. Perplexed, Shilian dug out the key and opened the box. The moment he did, he was nearly blinded by a bright golden light. The donation box was packed to bursting with gold bars. Even with just a cursory glance, there was nearly enough to exchange for 1,000,000 merits minimum. Shilian instantly threw the cover shut, pressing it down with both hands. Nothing but a small show of gratitude? To give such a hefty gift for no reason, was this a bribe to keep his mouth shut? He had initially thought that if it really was just a small gift, such as a jade pendant that contained a supply of spiritual power, then it might be best to accept it. After all, returning a gift might injure the Watermaster's face. The Watermaster was proud, so it wouldn't be a nice thing to do. But now, well, all right. As expected from the god of wealth. A chest this big, filled to the brim with gold bars. Now he had to return it. It just so happened he'd already been planning on making a trip to the heavens to check on the Windmaster. He figured Huacheng wouldn't be back soon enough to let him know in person, so he left a note and then hoisted the oppressively heavy donation box onto his back before taking off. Let me drink. This is a long chapter, I didn't realize. Unexpectedly, there was mayhem in the heavenly capital when he arrived. Shilian stood there, bug-eyed, and gaping at the destruction around him. The once perfectly tidy Grand Avenue of Divine Might was completely wrecked. Potholes, cracks, and craters marred the streets. A team of junior heavenly officials was running around in circles, attending to this and that, while Ling Wen was squatting next to a deep crater massaging her throbbing temples. Shilian approached her. Zhenjun, what happened? Ling Wen looked up, and was flummoxed by the giant donation box on his back. Your Highness, what are you doing carrying such a big donation box up here? As for what happened, don't even ask, Ling Wen sighed. General Nanyang and General Xuanzhen got into a fight and destroyed each other's palaces. That's Muqing and Fengshen. Fengshen and Muqing? Shilian was amazed. Why were the two of them fighting again? What could it be but that business with the fetus spirit, Ling Wen explained. A few martial gods met up to debate how to deal with the ghost mother and son. General Nanyang suggested bringing the fetus spirit to the refinery to dissolve it, since it did murder many people. But Xuanzhen wouldn't let him. His tone wasn't the nicest, as you'd expect. So Nanyang said, as if you've ever been so benevolent. Maybe you have a guilty conscience, and other such things. Your Highness, you know how it is. They didn't say much before they went off with their fists just like that. Look around. Look at the state of this place. You martial gods really don't have a good culture. This year's repair expenses are terrifying. I only ran the numbers halfway, and now I've forgotten everything again. Honestly. She really did look like she had quite the headache. Then I'll leave you to it, Shilian said. I'll go check up on Lord Windmaster. Ling Wen looked up. Lord Windmaster? Don't bother, Your Highness. Lord Windmaster isn't seeing visitors right now. Didn't you say he was a bit better? Shilian asked. That's what Lord Watermaster said, Ling Wen replied. But Lord Windmaster not seeing visitors was also a statement from Lord Watermaster. Not even I can see the Lord Windmaster right now, so he probably needs more time to recuperate. You'd best not go, Your Highness. Speaking of, isn't your donation box to... Wham! Shillian dropped the donation box to the ground. Then will you please help me return this to Lord Watermaster? I haven't done anything deserving of such a reward, and even if he didn't give me anything, I would never say anything that shouldn't be said. He felt relieved after throwing the box down and left with haste. Ling Wen called after him, but upon receiving no response, she let it go and continued to stare at the deep crater with a throbbing head. Although Shillian did leave, of course, he wouldn't descend to the mortal realm so easily. Instead, he snuck over to the esteemed palace of Wind and Water Masters in the heavenly capital. The palace was swarming with guards, both inside and out, but a small thing like that couldn't stop Shillian. Shi Qingxuan had brought him here in the past, so he had a general idea of where the Windmaster's bedchambers were located. He flipped over the wall and alternated between stealthily running across rooftops and slinking around the grounds until he arrived at his destination. It took him no time at all. His only concern was the possibility that the Windmaster had been moved elsewhere with his brother and wasn't in the building at all. Fortunately, this wasn't the case. He climbed onto the roof and found a blind spot where no one could see him. Then he hooked his legs onto the eaves and flipped himself upside down to peek into the bedchamber. What he saw shocked him. Shi Qingxuan was tightly trussed up, tied to his own bed with ropes that bound his hands and legs. Even so, he still struggled non-stop. Meanwhile, Shi Wudu was pacing back and forth next to his bed, with a bowl full of an unknown black substance in his hands. He paused for a moment before suddenly walking over to the head of the bed, and then he forced the bowl's contents down Shi Qingxuan's throat. That's the end of the chapter.
Damn.
The fucking... When Hua Cheng is like, I have a wife at home.
Yeah.
That kills me. Wait, there's an image actually. There's like a thirst trap image of him drinking his water.
A thirst trap?
That half of that chapter was a thirst trap. Did you hear him talking about his fucking sun-kissed skin?
Yeah.
So good.
Insane.
They're crazy.
The lust. And then he's like, I don't know why I don't like this information.
Literally, he's jealous.
Let's unpack this. Let's unpack this,
buddy. Let's unpack this, buddy. He doesn't think he deserves love. He can't ever unpack it.
He will.
Yeah, in like book 8.
He will.